So, accountability. This is a word I hear a lot from leaders in organizations, especially when our team is brought in to do assessments or leadership workshops. Accountability. Well, the thing that a lot of organizations fail to realize is that accountability also needs to be experienced. You can't just tell somebody, hey, be more accountable. And if you put somebody in some sort of supervisory capacity to check up on them, it still doesn't ensure accountability. And the new Scrum Guide that was released in November of 2020, that's the current one out there, is all about accountability. I love that they added that word everywhere on the Scrum team. So, what I'm sharing with you here is exactly what they added. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product. So, they get to give that direction, for the Scrum team to do the work on the product, but that's the product owner's accountability, not the Scrum Masters. People think, oh, well, I go to the Scrum Master to find out potential release date for the product or where we're at on spend or budget. No, the guide is very clear. Those are all responsibilities and accountability of the product owner. Scrum Masters coach the product owner in understanding these things and ensuring that it happens. Sure, the Scrum Master also coaches the developers and the organization at large outside of the Scrum team on the Scrum team's behalf. So a Scrum Master isn't responsible for all the product information. Product owners kind of have that who, what, why about the product, and anything in relation to scope, timeline, spend. The developers then who are doing the work for the product owner own the how. The developers are responsible for the solution. So we're looking to those developers to use their talents and their abilities to creatively come up with the solution for that who, what, why. So the developer's lane is the how, the product owner is the who, what, why. And the developers also have accountabilities, but it's broken out into these 4 bullets in the Scrum Guide. They're responsible, they're accountable for creating a plan. Sprint planning, topic 3, is where the developers create this plan. And it produces one of the main Scrum artifacts, which is called a sprint backlog. One of the things happening in Scrum implementations out there in the world of work is not understanding there's a product backlog, a sprint backlog, and the product increment, which is the 3rd artifact. I hear people generically using the word backlog as if there's just one that's continually being used and they have no concept of a sprint backlog. To me, this is a Scrum Master asleep at the wheel at sprint planning, because in sprint planning, we start off with product owner addressing the sprint goal, talking about the sprint goal, and then the developers and product owner in topic 2, pulling items from the product backlog onto their own sprint backlog and breaking it down into the how in topic 3. So that leads me to another dysfunction that I've heard a lot about. Not only do people not understand sprint backlog, what do you mean sprint goal? Reminds me of that quote from the movie Dodgeball, where Vince Vaughn's character says, I find that if you have a goal, you might not reach it. So it's like, is that what's going on? The whole concept of a sprint goal is what we want to leave sprint planning with, so that every single day at our daily Scrum, short and sweet, are we on track for our goal? Or are we not on track for the goal? What are we going to do about it if we're not on track for the goal? But it's pretty hard to meet that goal if you don't have one, unless that's the whole point, avoiding accountability. And we don't want that. We want accountability. So right there, Scrum Masters have their hands full with sprint planning and the 3 topics, and ensuring that the output is a sprint backlog that the developers are using to manage their own work. They're instilling quality, because as they're breaking the work down into the how, they're ensuring that it adheres to the definition of done. agreed to with the product owner during refinement. And then we adapt the plan each day. Because if we get into a daily scrum and someone says, toward the sprint goal of having a functioning payment gateway, I'm not on track. Here's the error I'm getting. Well, now, due to that transparency, another member of the developers can say, I totally know how to solve that. Let's you and I get together after. But when we take away not only the accountability and that transparency, your daily scrum can fall into more of a status report where people just think it's a laundry list of stuff and they even call out ticket numbers. Well, what is a ticket number supposed to have to do with a sprint goal? And then you hear stuff like, no blockers, no blockers, no blockers. That's a scrum master who has not taught the developers the importance of the daily scrum, but how it was intended to be used. Because it was never intended to be, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm going to do today, no blockers. It was always about the sprint goal. And people over the years have just creatively edited the sprint goal off of the 3 suggested questions. So I love the fact that the new Scrum Guide just took the darned questions out. And now it just talks about, hey, conduct the daily scrum as long as you're talking about the sprint goal. So no more avoiding this level of accountability. And then Scrum Master, it's not necessarily you being their adult daycare provider. I love that last item where the Scrum Guide now added, hey, the developers can hold each other accountable as professionals. That's what teams do. That's what high-performing teams do. But this accountability starts to be diminished when we take that opportunity away.